Hi everyone, welcome to Sweet Delights Cakery. Today in our tutorial you're going to learn how to make this really beautiful Stephanotis flower out of wafer paper. So let me go over the materials and tools that you're going to need to make this flower. So the tools and materials that you're going to need to make this, first and foremost you're going to need wafer paper, and I have this wafer paper that I used on my flowers. This is from Icing Images and this is their new line of wafer paper, and these are not your ordinary wafer paper that you buy. These are the flavored ones. So this wafer paper is vanilla flavor, yum yum, and they have in different colors as well. So go visit Icing Images. I'll have the link available to you in the description box, and they have some beautiful wafer paper available there. We're also gonna need some gum paste. We're also gonna need some pliers, round nose pliers, flat nose pliers, anything that you have at home. Wire cutters, you're gonna need some wire, of course. I'm using 26 gauge wire in green, and if you have white that's fine as well. Some stamens, I'm using some pearl stamens, some gum glue, a brush, and you're also gonna need a flower paper punch. This is Martha Stewart brand stamp and punch pack, so this is something you can get from a craft store. Okay, a couple of other tools that I forgot to mention. You're gonna also need a veiner, and this is totally optional. If you want to dust it with some pearl dust, you want to get some pearl dust and a flat brush to apply that with. So to begin with, we're going to cut our wire, all of them, into halves. This is about, let's see, 6 inches long, so it'll be about 3-inch long pieces that we'll be using. So I'm just going to take a few at a time with my wire cutters. I'm just going to eyeball and cut in the center. Okay, and continue to do that with the remaining wire. So you want to take your wire and make a hook right at the edge of the wire like that. And how you do this is you want to take your flat nose pliers or your round nose pliers, and you're going to place that right at the edge of the wire like that, and you're simply going to turn it till it makes a hook, and make sure this is an open hook and not a closed one, like that. So continue to make hooks on the remaining wire that you have. Okay, so we're ready to make the buds for the Stephanotis and also the bases. What you're gonna need is some gum paste, a little bit more than 1/4 inch diameter, so about that much right there. And what you're going to do is you're going to taper one end. It's a little bit on the sticky side. Okay, remember the Stephanotis has a little bit of a longer base, so you want it a little bit longer in size. And then you're going to take your wire, dip it in some gum glue, and try to go from the base all the way to the top. And then again you can adjust and taper the end. If it's sticky, use some cornstarch, but I'm bringing it a little bit lower because that's just a characteristic of the flower. And then you're going to take your veiner and you're going to make 4 lines. So you can do one straight line, just do a little indentation. Okay, and then you're going to do on either ends. You can kind of go back and redo the first 2 that you did. So that's how the bud should look like. So next you're going to do the base for the flower. Again, you're going to use a circle gum paste round a little bit more than 1/4 inches. Okay, roll it up. Again, you're going to do the same thing. Roll the end. Remember, we want it a little bit longer, like that. And then you're going to take the top and just flatten it, like so. Okay, so it's flattened on the top. Then you're going to take your wire. I'm just going to use some of my powder that's on here because it's a little bit on the sticky side. You're going to take your wire, dip it in some gum glue. This time you're going to thread it through the top. Okay, go all the way down. And let this wire go about halfway through to the base because you don't want it showing on the top. And then again, you want to taper it. Like that. And then on the top, it's okay to have that opening there because we're going to use that later on to attach the little stamen to the center. So make the remaining the buds and the bases. Normally when I make these for like one sprig, I would put like 1 or 2 buds and like 3 flowers. So just kind of figure the amount that you need for your project and make the amount needed. Okay, so I have my wafer paper here and I'm just going to cut out a piece from here. It's always good to work with, you know, take whatever the piece that you want and just work with that because the wafer paper can dry really easily. So I'm gonna cut a small piece here. And I think that should be good for me to work right now with. Okay, so the wafer paper has 2 sides to it. One side is a little bit rough and the other side is a little bit smooth. So I'm going to have the smooth side as my top and the rough side is going to be the bottom part of the flower. Okay, so I have my pearl dust and this is actually an extra step. If you don't have the pearl dust, you can just go ahead and make it with just the plain wafer paper and that's totally fine. So I have my smooth side facing up and I'm taking some of my pearl dust with my brush and I'm going to brush it on. This is going to give it a little sheen. Okay, so I have my paper punch and I'm gonna be cutting it facing this side up so that way I can see where the paper is going to lay when I put this in. So I'm trying to go to the very end and make my first cutout. And keep making your flowers. Okay, so next we're going to get the bases that we made. Just, you know, when you're drying your bases, don't dry them overnight. Just dry them for a couple of hours because you still want that base to be a little bit moist, not too moist, but you know, for this to get attached, and you don't want it to crack or anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to take one of my bases and I'm going to put a little bit of gum glue on the very top of the base, like that. And then I'm going to take my petal, place it right on top. Okay. And then you can take your veiner and just poke a hole right at the center and just kind of push around. That way it has that shape. Now mine is a little bit on the sticky side, so I'm going to take a little bit of my dust, that's cornstarch, and just push and open up that center a little bit. Just make sure that the flower is centered well. Okay, so that's your flower right there. You want to let this dry, and let's make another one. Just take our base, put some gum glue on the base, not a lot, just a little. If there's too much, that's not good. Okay, so you want to put that right at the center. Make sure it's centered. And then again, you're going to take your veiner, the narrow end, and poke a hole and just push on the sides. If it's sticky, just take some cornstarch, like that, so it has opening. So continue to make your flowers the same way, and if you're not using this, please have these covered, maybe in a plastic sleeve, so they're not going to dry out. And the stamens, what you can do is you can take them. Now the pearl stamens, they're already pearl, you don't have to do anything to it. I'm just gonna take a couple off here. Just cut them short. Let's take two. Okay, and then you can use tweezers as well if you need a little bit of help to get this into the center, or you can just place it in like that. So here are our flowers that we just made. So you want to let this dry overnight, and then you want to take your flowers, and if you have already applied pearl dust to the top, then you want to take a brush and some of your pearl dust and just apply that to the base as well. Okay, so that everything looks the same part of the flower, like that. Okay, and you want to do the same thing to your buds as well. You want to color them. Okay, so to put this together, you're going to need some tape. If you're using white wire, then you can use white tape. I'm going to use some green tape here, and I'm going to cut some pieces off first, and I like to cut this in actually half. So I'm just going to fold it and cut it, and do the same here. So this is a small sprig that you can use here and there in your design. So we're not doing like a bouquet or anything. So you want to take your buds. So I would take like one bud and then one flower and have the bud like a little bit higher, like that, and then you can tape that. Right at the base. Kind of put both of them together and just twist the wire while holding the tape. Okay, so that's one set, and then you can slowly bring that flower forward like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna attach another flower to this, and I'm gonna bend it just a little bit so it's a little bit easier for me to work with, and I'm gonna put this a little bit lower in height. Okay, so it's just a tiny bit lower than the first flower. And again, I'm going to take my tape and wrap it. And then you can adjust your flowers as you go. You can even put a third flower in, just bend, and then you can kind of center it like that. So let me just grab my tape. Just gonna wrap it around. Just one wrap and then start twisting. And if the flower moves around, that's, don't worry about it, we can adjust it after we're done. And then if there's any excess at the end, you can just simply cut it off, and then you can readjust your flowers. So here's the finished sprig. And then you can use these, a couple of these sprigs, here and there as fillers for whatever the design that you're working with. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Also, take a look at our Christmas holiday gift box tutorial. It has some wafer paper flowers, some pine cones, and some evergreen sprigs that's also done with wafer paper. So check that out, and thank you so much again. Happy holidays.